Most things, when they get cold, they actually contract or get smaller. But water is weird. Water expands or gets bigger when it freezes. And soda is mostly water. So when you put a can of soda in the freezer, the liquid inside freezes and gets bigger until it splits the can open like this. It can even explode, like this one. If your soda's in a glass bottle instead of a can, that's even worse. You don't want glass flying everywhere. So don't put cans or bottles in the freezer. That's why you hear that. But what does this have to do with rocks? I bet you can guess. As rainwater freezes in the crack of a rocky surface, the water expands, which pushes the rock apart. Crack. We call this, you want to guess? Ice wedging, because the ice wedges itself into the cracks and widens them, just like plant roots. So both root wedging and ice wedging can split a big rock into smaller rocks. Ice wedging is even more powerful than root wedging. The cracks get deeper and wider even more quickly with ice. Look at this. Here's a rock that has been broken up because of ice wedging. You see all the cracks? Here's another one. And look, this used to be just one rock, but it got broken down into smaller rocks, into individual pieces. Ice wedging and root wedging break rock down into smaller pieces. If you walk around at the top of a mountain, you might expect to see only solid rock, but think about it. On the top of the highest mountains, it's often cold, right? Rainwater will freeze. In summer, it might melt, but in winter, it will freeze again. And after all that freezing and melting, the top of a mountain will start to look like this. The surface of the mountain becomes a bunch of smaller, broken up rocks, not all one solid piece. Here's another example of a mountaintop. You see how jagged and cracked all the rocks are? So what do you think? Will a mountain last forever? Well, look at this. This isn't quite as tall as a mountain, but it's still a giant rocky hill. Look at all those splits and cracks. In a few more centuries, as more roots take hold and more water freezes in the cracks, this whole hill will probably split and fall apart into the sea. So we've solved the mystery. Mountains don't last forever. Root wedging and ice wedging breaks them apart. Soon, we're going to do the activity. I want to get you thinking about what happens to the rocks next. You see, once rocks break away from a solid mountain, that's just the beginning of their story. Some of the rocks will tumble down the entire mountainside. They'll get washed away by rainstorms, rolling farther downhill. Maybe they'll fall into a river where they'll get tumbled along, crashing against other rocks. On this long journey, do the rocks get changed in any way? How could we investigate? How could we find out? What happens to a rock once it's broken away from the mountain and now begins to tumble downhill?